It's elaborate setup.
We'll just I feel so high tech. It's inverted.
Oh,
The screen.
our biggest pet peeve.
I hate being
It's just you. It's you against the inversion of these two.
Okay, and then we'll do the screen recording on here.
Okay.
So that it. Alrighty. Okay, and then one more thing. Live on TikTok.
It's always one more thing. With you, it's always one more
I
thing.
know. Okie doke. Let's see. Awesome. All right. And the actual one.
There's so many split focuses.
I
If
know.
someone comes in right now, I'm just
Where
gonna
do they
be like,
even
where
look?
from?
I know. All right, we'll start now. Okay. I might actually record it on here as well, just to be safe.
For posterity, really.
Exactly. All right. Okay.
Too early, look.
We'll start here.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our third Ask Us Anything session. We are on a couple of different platforms today. We're on TikTok, YouTube, and also on our Discord server. And we have a wonderful, wonderful tutor here with us today. Her name is Alice. She is going to be taking us through Module C today. We're looking at getting ahead for Mod C and anything that you can kind of do to prep yourself in terms of building a portfolio and just working your way towards when Mod C rolls around in Year 12. If you have any questions for us at any point, please drop them in the comments so that she can get to it. And yeah, we'll just get straight into it. I think we can start with just a couple of, maybe we'll start with an intro.
Yes,
Yeah,
of
that would be
course,
good.
Of course. Well, my name is Alice. I'm a tutor here at Dimmicks Tutoring, and I tutor across multiple year levels from, junior, secondary, senior, and I know that I really enjoy creative writing, and I would love to be kind of a source of guidance for you all, because I actually do creative writing at a university level too, so it's not all doom and gloom after you finish HSC. You can actually continue on with creative writing if it is your passion, and that's what I've discovered. So I really hope that I can be here, answer your questions about whether that be, workshopping your stuff that you already have, getting started, all those different things. And specifically, if you have questions about technical language, if you have questions about actually getting into the exam, what you have to do once you're in there, I'm here for you. So
Yes.
And
Awesome.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Earlier today, we had a look through the 2025 English Advanced Paper 2 text that they decided to, the imaginative piece. We were thinking today that we might actually go through and look at that one and see what we might be able to kind of break down in terms of how you might be able to plan your imaginative text and how you would plan for writing something with a photo as the prompt instead of maybe a text or
a prose extract or
Exactly.
something that you might be more used to, because I understand that visuals sometimes can be daunting because you're not exactly sure if you have to break them down as an art piece, as an actual literary text, and what the difference is between those two.
Exactly. Hello, everyone on TikTok. We are just holding a Q&A session. Alice does creative writing, English. She's a pro, so drop your questions.
Trying to be.
If you are needing any help with any of those things, give us 1 second. We're just going to pull up the HSC English Advanced Paper 2 prompt, and then we can start going through that together.
Yes.
Alrighty.
Because they're releasing quite quickly for the 2025 paper, so thankfully we have that resource on hand.
Yes.
And so
they're so quick with it. It's
so
crazy.
Quick. And so and we were just talking about the fact that it's a visual prompt this time, so that might be a little bit different, a little bit daunting for to see for the first time. And so we're hoping that part of this session is about preparation and stressing the importance of preparation beforehand rather than when you're on the brink of the exam. So
no cramming.
Yes, no cramming.
All right. I'll just do a screen share so we can see it on there. Do. Alrighty, so for those of us on the TikTok live, I'll just tilt the camera towards the image so you can see what we're going through.
You too.
and our lovely marketing intern. How do I make this shorter?
I think that's a choice.
Give me a sec, I'm a boomer. It'll take me a second. Doo-doo. Is that the shortest it'll go?
Yeah.
I'm scared it's marks.
There we go. She's fine.
Okay. Yep, there we are. All right, so this is the prompt that we're kind of looking at. Alice, I'll let you take it away.
Of course. So, as part of this prompt, there are kind of 3 headings that I like to look at, and I think that this falls under directly. So you can think about sort of context, purpose, and then intended audience as you're looking at an image and as you're going into the reflective piece of writing that you'll do after the fact. And so for this image in particular, say you're approaching this and you're starting to write and you think, what would my purpose be here? There are quite a few options. So as we ideate, you might think your purpose might be to talk about a disjointed world, a fractured world. You might think about this as a motif for time. So there are different things that you can pick up in this image. Think about the black and white coloration. Think about how it's grainy. Think about how there's this uniformity to the figures. And again, that disjointed and tilted world. So if we're looking at that and we think our purpose is to either provide a commentary on that, to critique something, or we might think it's something that can be used as just to promote a kind of irregular or regular in the everyday world, however you like to take it. That might be your purpose. And so as you're writing, you go with that purpose, with that aim, and then you can sort of predict where you'd like to head with that, either to the irregular, to the uncanny, or trying to restabilize and kind of get a sense of stability in this world here. The second thing that you would look to then are the various techniques that you might like to employ in your own writing. You might think language techniques, and in this case, you might specifically think visual motifs and a visual language that you might like to create here. So think about tone, think about atmosphere, and then as you're writing, I'd love if you could also think about the way that this prompt differs from the others that you might see. So in various prompts up until this point, you might have seen prose extracts, you might have seen maybe a reflective piece, but here we've got a whole new type of media, meaning that you need to approach it differently. And then once you've got that, you can think about context. So I know that context is quite significant in many of the other pieces of writing, so the various modules beforehand. And so as you're thinking about context here, try and root it in either a future-focused one, a historical one, or and as you're
Sorry.
No,
No.
you're
okay.
oh yeah.
I was just going to say, hey,
Yeah.
everyone who's joining the TikTok live now. Alice is going through paper 2 of the English 2025 HSC paper.
Mhm.
If you guys have any questions for her about creative writing, Mod C, anything like that, please drop it in the comments. Sorry, keep going.
Of
Just for
course.
any of our newer
For newcomers,
joins,
yes, of
yeah.
course. And so now that we're working with context, I'm sure that you've been familiarized with context in various other pieces of writing. And so this might be difficult to see as a literary product here, but it most definitely is. It most definitely is. We can think about it in maybe a historical context because of the grainy, because of the black and white filter that we've got this world overlaid by. We may think about it presently, the conditions or the concerns with capitalism, with the rise of uniformity, with the rise of kind of a dysregularity within the world. That might be, or maybe even futuristically, you may think of this as some cyberpunk or cyber core sort of setting. And so when you try and root it in those various contexts, make sure that you can establish that quite firmly in your writing. So for now, we've got, purpose, so we've got your aims, then we've got the context, and then finally, another umbrella term you might think about is intended audience. So many of the pieces of writing that you've been reading definitely have an intended audience, and that obviously plays into purpose and context here. So your intended audience, as you're thinking about that, who do you want to kind of direct this to? What sort of ideas would you like to promote or marginalize or minimize? And as you're progressing with your creative writing piece, do you have those three headings in mind? So context and purpose or aims, and then intended audience.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a really good breakdown. Again, just for those of us on TikTok, Alice is here answering any of your questions about Module C, or if you have any questions about creative writing for the HSC, just in general, any study-related questions, drop them in the comments and she'll get to them during this live. For now, did you have anything else you might want to kind of continue with?
No, if you have any questions about the sort of reflective writing portion of it, how you can find literary influences, maybe how you can relate them to your work, I'm very happy to talk about that now, because of course we've got the narrative portion and then we've got the reflective portion. So I'm very happy to talk about that too, because I know that some texts might be more difficult to link to something like a visual medium. So yeah, please let me know if you have any concerns or queries about that.
Yes, please. Let me just see. Yeah, I can unlock. Yeah. Okay. You have to be on for like 20. We just checking if we're getting any messages. Okay, what we might do in the time being is I'll ask you a couple of frequently asked questions in relation to Module C and looking at just English for the HSC or just in high school as well.
Yeah.
I think one really big question that a lot of kids have is, because we're kind of in this culture of memorizing your quotes and your texts and whatever prompts you get, you kind of just want to mold it into the text.
And trying to fit it in nonetheless,
right?
If it doesn't exactly
so like
slot.
what would your tips be for navigating that in a way that makes sure that you're able to go into it confident that you've had the time to develop these like prompts and you have a clear understanding of like, this is what I want to talk about, but also so it like adapts to the style?
I think that to be able to write about, your content sustainably, you do have to have no more than 4 focus texts that you bring in with, even though you might like to have multiple for each of the different styles that you may encounter, persuasive, discursive, or narrative. You still have to think about one, like, each group of text having a focus. So if you're walking into it having a sort of quite hazardous understanding of quite a few texts, that isn't going to actually help you feed them into or direct them into your writing, because it wouldn't be malleable. You need sort of texts that you know really well so that you can actually manipulate them and so they can become malleable, and there is more ability to slot them into various different circumstances and contexts that you may encounter in the exam conditions. So I'd recommend 3 or 4. Beyond that, if you're really concerned about how you're going to link it to a variety of prompts, then I really think that going back to the basics of text always worked for me. Being able to think about them based on literary techniques. So you have to think about your example and then effect or emotional impact that has. So whether that be you link it to a broader motif or to one isolated instance that you find really captivating in the text, and make sure that you understand it as it links to the broader text and a broader context as well. So back to those ideas of, intended audience, purpose, aims, and then the context. Think about that and try and find that in your maybe 4 core texts that you can try and employ in various questions and for your narrative piece as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, let's have a look at what do you think makes a good writer's voice? Because I think that that's something that markers look for is originality and like your ability to control your voice and your tone. And as you just said, what do you think is like a recommendation to try and find your writer's voice or develop that?
I think you have to first think about who it's for and then who you're writing to. So if you think about it almost like a letter, almost conversationally, if you're writing it to someone, you're writing it for an intended purpose, having those things in mind are really important because that guides and directs your writing. And so as you start, think about if you want it to be a commentary, a critique, if you want to uphold a certain idea, maybe dismantle a certain idea. Think about the writers that you've read, what makes them strong. Do you like their use of really short, snappy sentences? Do you like their ability to expand and world build? And if you pick up those sort of, the evidence of good writing in your own reading practice, I feel like that will really help you establish quite a strong practice in your own right. And so some of the things that I really like to look for is as I go, I write down what I enjoyed as I was reading it. I write down, what effect it had on me, what atmosphere was created. And so I think that for originality's purposes, you have to have sort of an original audience. You have to have, even though it maybe seems quite simple, you have to have an original thought. You have to have something that you'd like to say that you, in a certain way that you believe may have not already been addressed, may have not already been discussed. And at the end of the day, it is about passion. Like you write things that you're passionate about, you write things that you know about. And so when you get your prompt, when you're presented with your prompt, that doesn't divorce you from the rest of the term that you've been looking at, doesn't divorce you from every other idea that you've ever had. You can link them in, you can create this amalgam product. So even though, it isn't a rote learning exercise, it is about a combined experience exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Just for those of us on the TikTok live, just letting you guys know, Alice is available to answer any of your Module C HSC related questions. Can be about study tips, habits, anything that you are struggling with or have any questions for, drop them in the comments and she'd be happy to answer them right now. While we wait and see if anyone is commenting, we are going to continue with some frequently asked questions. Looking at, okay, well, maybe we can have a look at, because Mod C has the imaginative piece or the persuasive or the discursive, and it has the reflection.
Piece, yes.
Maybe you can walk us through your tips for how to approach that.
Of course. Are they reflective or
let's go with the reflective for now.
Of course. Well, what I suggest is that you start with quite a broad statement. So you try and think about the writing piece that you've been influenced by and its purpose, context, intended audience, then make two quite general statements about the way that would link to your piece, whether you're choosing techniques like tone and atmosphere, whether you're choosing a more specific language technique, personification, metaphor, however you like. From that point on, after you write that opening statement, you can really unpack it from there. So what the main focus will be is you start with the language technique and then you expand by looking at effect and the emotional impact that has. So for example, if you're doing a text like they did last year, George Orwell's, 1984, something like that, you would think strongly about the way that atmosphere and tone is created and the way that it's a commentary for, the hyper-capitalism that's really rife today and also surveillance capitalism. So you think about how that links to your writing, how you've been influenced by that, how maybe the audience overlaps, your intended audience, maybe your context, and also the value systems. Value systems are really important, and then the cultural context is also very important. So think about your cultural context, the time in which you're writing, their cultural context, time in which they're writing, and then really build upon that in your reflective piece. And I suggest having at least two strong pieces of either technical language or emotional or emotive tone that you find in each of your provided writing pieces, or each of the writing pieces that you come in with as areas of inspiration.
Yeah, awesome. Again, just for any of our newer joins to our TikTok live, Alice is here answering some of your Module C HSC related questions, English questions in general, study tips, stress, managing that, school, anything you have any questions about, drop it in the comment and she'd be happy to walk you through her tips and tricks. In the meantime, we're just answering a couple of frequently asked questions that will hopefully help you kind of create a guide for what you should be looking out for when it comes to crafting your writing for Module C. Okay, what we might do is, I don't know if you guys saw on our TikTok earlier, but we made a video that walked us through some do's and don'ts within the English space. Maybe we can have a look at some of those in relation to Mod C and get a bit of insight on what you think about each thing. I think that would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Let's start. So this is our little
This is our little
pyramid.
board.
It's
Even though
inverted. But give me just 1 second. Flip it.
Yeah. If it wants to flip.
It'll try its best.
All right.
There we go.
Okay. So it's no longer inverted.
Is it showing it the right way now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't go back. I like.
Oh, okay.
No, you're showing
All right. All good. All right. So we'll start with maybe the bottom of the pyramid, which for those of you that can't read it because it's inverted, says retelling the plot instead of analyzing it. Obviously, this is a little bit more applicable in the analytical writing side of things. But maybe you can kind of, just walk us through.
I can link it, yes.
How to avoid, maybe?
Yeah, how to avoid. So I know that you've been very focused on the texts of influence and inspiration that you've been looking at in your, across the course design, and especially in Module C. So when you think about some of the effects might be you're retelling or you're using many of the features that you find in your inspiration text in your own writing. And so when it says retelling the plot instead of analyzing, that's the trap that we don't want to fall into. So if you're retelling the plot, you're maybe doing like a play-by-play. You may be, instead of actually expanding upon the various plot points, the various worlds that you're creating, you may be just trying to get through. It's really obvious and apparent when things are rushed, when your writing is rushed, and so you don't actually sit in your setting. You don't do your orientation back to basics. You don't do your setting, situation, characterization. And so when you're thinking about the analytical portion, that comes more in the reflective writing section. But for your actual Module C, for your narrative writing, like what they're really looking for is world building, strong characterization. They're really looking for the strength of language, and just expanding upon, these moments that you feel are important, expanding upon tone and atmosphere, and trying to, as best you can in the short time that you have, creating an authorial voice and intention.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Moving on, the next little tier on our pyramid, we kind of, we placed it as this is the worst of it, and then it kind of, gets slowly better as you go up. Now, this is still quite bottom tier. We're looking at identifying techniques without explaining them. You could probably talk about this in relation to the reflection as well. What do you think?
Well, if you name drop a technique, you have to expand upon it, basically. If you're talking about a technique, you aren't just trying to pick it from a text. That isn't the exercise here. You don't try and pick it from a text and then just leave it at that. You have to think about explaining it as in relation to what you think the author was trying to do with that, and then the actual effect that it has on the audience. So you as a reader, you'll know definitely the way you felt when reading it. And so when you think about identifying a technique, you go on to then explaining it and exploring it through that lens. So you think about how it made you feel, the effect, the emotional impact. You think about the flow and effects. Did this have any further ramifications later on, any implications for the character, for the design of the text itself, for the way that, I guess, the narrative progressed? So when you identify and then explain, make sure, yes, you still list it, you still label the technique, but then effect, emotional impact, and then implications for the broader text and its context in general.
Yeah, perfect. All right, and then the next one we have on our tier is memorizing an essay instead of adapting your quotes and analysis to the question. I feel like you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, but yeah, just kind of looking at, because a lot of people fall into the trap of, because it's so daunting to go into a test without preparation, they think that preparing means memorizing.
Yes.
So how do we avoid that?
And unfortunately, I also know that it's been drilled into you, rote learning might be the way in many different subjects, but fortunately or unfortunately, however you find it, it cannot be the way in creative writing in Module C. So instead of actually just writing out essay after essay after essay, you think about more deeply the influence and the impact of your texts themselves. So if you truly are able to break down your text into its context, intended audience, and purpose, and then find a strong thematic underlining, find strong motifs, then you can really apply it to multiple different contexts, even if it's just the hints that you find in your narrative writing, even if it's just tone, even if it's just how you would like to, how you would like to guide your piece, what sort of aims you have. Really think about that as you're approaching the texts that you're choosing to bring in. Make sure that you have a quite focused understanding of them, and make sure that you understand the context beyond just the text. Where does it sit historically? Where does it sit in our day? Where does it sit maybe in future? Does it endure? Think about those ideas, and then think about what it's trying to promote, what it's trying to minimize. And all those different things can really be quite applicable to many different circumstances. So yes, do not just think about how you can blurt information onto the page. Please do actually think about your texts and the purpose, intended audience, and context.
Yeah. Perfect. Alrighty, anyone on the TikTok live, do you have any questions for Alice in terms of Module C, the HSC, English, life?
Yeah, where you can go from here. I was talking at the start of the live about the fact that I'm actually a university student and I'm doing creative writing as a university student. So you can have pathways after HSC. If you're really enjoying your creative writing, there are universities and institutions that have creative writing as core units of study, as even, master's and PhD level studies. So please know that it isn't the end here if you really enjoy creative writing, which I do. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, while we wait, if you have any questions, please do drop it in the chat. But moving up into our next tier, we have connecting techniques to themes and purpose.
This is a very good one.
Have you seen you see her spark come back?
Yes, the light has restored in my heart. So if you do this, that is a big tip. Trying to, when we think back to identifying techniques without explaining them, connecting techniques to themes and purposes are so important. So, for example, in that image that we saw in Module C, that visual image, if you think about maybe the technique that you're looking at is the existence of real uniformity and real parallel between all the figures grouped together. If you think about maybe the technique you're looking at is the motif of time or something like that, you can link that to the theme and purpose of your actual narrative piece or the visual text that you're presented with by saying, for example, there is a strong symbol of time, a strong symbol of rhythm in the visual that you can look at in Module C for this year. And then the theme might be perhaps it might be chronology or time itself. It might be temporal sort of concerns and existences. It may be uniformity. It may be hyperreality, or perhaps hyperrealism. Maybe it might be the uncanny. That might be the theme. Things are just slightly distorted, slightly tilted. And then you might say the purpose of this is to kind of disquiet the reader and the visual text. It might be to create quite an arresting depiction of future realities or the present one we're living in, something like that. So I would please do connect your techniques to themes and purposes.
Yeah, it looks like we have a question from someone. Is this a mini course on media literacy?
I mean, if that's how you take it, absolutely. I feel like Module C is quite a lot about media literacy because you can be presented with so many different types of prompts from so many different mediums that you do have to really unpack it as, like that image for you might have been Big Brother looking over.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Absolutely is about media literacy.
Yeah, and we're just kind of looking, in case you joined late and weren't aware, we're looking at Module C of the 2025 HSC exam paper for English. We're just having a chat about what Module C is like, how to prepare a portfolio for it before the test comes around. And we did also do a quick dive into the 2025 English advanced paper as well. We have a free resource that takes you through portfolio building on our Discord as well. So join that for sure. But in the meantime, moving on to our next tier, we're looking at, dun, dun, dun. Again, it's inverted, so you guys will never know. But right there, which is analyzing effect on the reader plus meaning.
Mm-hmm. So yes, again, this is a very important one. So if we're thinking about looking at a technique and then thinking about its reader impact and then its meanings and messages, this will really help you with your reflective writing because you know what you've read and basically they want you to. So if you're impacted by a certain text, by a certain form of media, then you can really think about it as being impactful and emotive and effective. So choose pieces that resonate with you. Make sure that you can resonate with many of the ideas that are on the page, or at least collect meanings and messages from the text itself. So when you think about analyzing effect on the reader and the meaning of that, you might say, for example, the technique that we're looking at is personification. The effect of that is that you feel like you are embedded in the text and there is this animation to it because, non-human or inanimate things are being given life and purpose. The effect that it has on you as a reader is it gives you this sense of, again, immediacy. You're connected to it or connected to whatever object is animated in the work. And then the meaning of that might be that there is this lifeblood to the universe that really just surrounds and encompasses everything. That's just an example, but you can see how important it is rather than just saying the technique or just saying that it was effective, the why, the justification.
Yeah, awesome. It looks like we have another comment. So Sumiko said, surprisingly didn't expect to run into a live that could help me in uni English units. Oh, that's awesome to hear.
Oh.
Yeah, Alice is doing creative writing at university. So if you've got any questions for her, she would be the person to go to for help with that.
Yes, and I've also done the technical studies too. So if you're concerned about, your life of texts, if you're looking at, any of those sort of more technical ones about the preservation, endurance, and conservation of texts as well, I've done units like that. So I'm happy to help across the board.
Yeah, and then Emma just asked, is there a live to speak about Common Mod? Yeah, we'd be happy to take you through a bit of Common Mod now. That's what you're doing at school, I think, at the moment. Year 12s are studying Common Module at school. Let me just pull up. We've actually got one of the seminar that we could kind of have a look at, Emma. Give us 1 second. Did you have any specific questions about Common Module? Anything?
How to approach it?
Yeah.
Or...
Just give us 1 sec.
Oh, Emma's excited by the prospect of a PowerPoint.
Let's have a look.
We're just getting it up now, and as we're doing that, feel free to ask any questions.
I have an essay for Billy Elliot super soon. Have you read Billy
I haven't,
Elliot yourself?
unfortunately.
That's okay.
But are you worried about any particular part of it? Is it a reflective essay? Is it going to be, what sort of substance do you need in this essay? Is it discursive? Is it persuasive? Give me the exact nitty gritty of the type of essay, and we'll try and work through it together. But yes, we're pulling up the resources that we have. And again, we have our Discord server that also has resources present, and it has other tutors online, some of whom may have read Billy Elliot. Unfortunately, I haven't, or watched it. I know there's also a theatre performance. So that may be one thing that you think about in your essay. What does it take for a text to be transmittable across many different forms and many different mediums?
Mm-hmm. Emma said, I've made my quote table. It's an unseen question that's not too much on the notification. I've made my quote table. Okay, so I think that with Mod C, not too much on the notification about whether or not it's a discursive.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, give us one sec. Let me just have a look. We've usually got some. Okay.
So it's good that you've made your quote table, absolutely. Have you split it into various segments? Because what I like to do is I like to split it into context, purpose, intended audience. So if you're thinking about specific quotes, try and separate them into their various components. Try and identify a few key features of it that way. So what the context is, at what point in the text this comes from, what does that mean? Is it towards is it a climactic event? Is it a building? Is it circumstantial? If not, you don't need to address as much the actual placement that it has in the text. You might think about the purpose of it, what it aims to do, what sort of technical language expresses that aim. Then you can think about, Billy Elliot, that is more of the historical work and what implications that it has in today's society, or what certain things you could link it to. And then intended audience in its day, you as the intended audience as now studying it, what's the purpose of it now? And then perhaps does it have endurance as a text from thenceforth? So
yeah, awesome.
And then we've got our
TikTok Live is not great when it comes to showing a screen. So I'll flip it. It's not going to be super readable, but this is up on our Discord server. If you join that one, it's going to go up today. It essentially is a full guide on lifting English marks by 20% to achieve that band 6. Just having a look. Yes, I have done that. I've done it into the different human experiences and so on. Thank you. Somebody said, do you know any girls that own Christian Dior? Unfortunately not. Anyways, Emma, if you're still here, I'll just try to show you. Hold on. There we go. This is the guide that's going up later today. Wow, I'm so bad at this. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Again, it is inverted, but essentially it has a guide of, here's an example of what you might design a table to look like. As Alice was saying, you did do your quotes table, but this could be a good idea to make sure that you're connecting it back to the rubric. So for example, an idea from the rubric might be the role of storytelling, and then how this correlates to your text. Storytelling reveals aspects of the human condition, for example, the fallibility of men that are otherwise unexamined, and then you can go ahead and relate that to your text. So that might be something that you could look at taking a look into. I think the main thing is obviously connecting it to the rubric in your own original tone, right?
In your own original tone. And yet also, if you're thinking about coming at it from that human experience perspective, make sure that you think about what sort of implications that lens has. Because of course the author in the day took a certain perspectival lens, and so you taking this one at what point do you determine that the human experience is the really controlled variable in the text? Also, what sort of insights can be drawn from that? You may also think about consciousness. Is this an implied reality? Is it, overt? Think about what sort of layers of consciousness might be present if you're thinking about the human experience in particular. Is it stark realism? Is there a subjectivity? So do absolutely decipher your own lenses too.
Yeah, for sure. Do we tutor nursing students? We don't. We currently tutor years 3 to years 12, and we look at the New South Wales curriculum and possibly a little bit of the Victorian curriculum as well. Now, what we might do is, again, our Discord is also streaming this and has a share screen option. So if you are a student that's joined this live and is looking to have a look at a portfolio tracker that we've made, I was thinking we could take the students through the portfolio tracker.
Absolutely.
It's a really great one for Module C specifically. It's been created and it's downloadable for free. It's just a little hard to show on TikTok. I'll try my best, but if you join the Dimix Discord server, it has all the resources on there. Let's just pull it up now. Give me 1 second. All right. Again, if you have any questions for Alice about Module C, about creative writing, about the HSC, about English, about uni, anything, drop a comment.
Yes, I also have a life too. I
Yeah,
can do lifestyle
exactly.
concerns too. And just one more thing on the reflective portion of Module C as well. There is an interesting dynamic that you can create in your own reflective writing, where there's either an inconclusivity or there is a formal wrapping up of your reflective writing. You don't always have to think about it as needing a conclusion. There can be questions lingering, so that's something that I really played into, which I found interesting as well.
Awesome. All right, I'll just pull up the Module C portfolio tracker. When is schoolies? I have no idea.
I have no idea. We're unk. We have no idea
We're
when
unk
schoolies is.
status, unfortunately. All right, hold on.
I mean, well, where are you planning to go for your schoolies location? That's the other question, because there's there's Gold Coast, there's where else is there? There's Geelong, there's ones out at bays and stuff, so have a think about that too.
Absolutely. Okay, let's see if we can show you guys the portfolio tracker. It's a little bit hard to show on this tripod. All right, what we might do is, I have worked on this one, but I think that it's pretty self-explanatory, so please jump in if there's any tips or anything like that you've got. But as you can see, this is this is the Module C portfolio tracker. So essentially what we've created is, it's got a portfolio overview, which kind of walks you through possibly looking at every time you're starting a new composition, you pop it in here, you let us know, well, you let yourself know, if it's a draft, if it's in progress, if it's at final status. You can kind of look at whether it was an image, whether it was a quote, whether it was a prose, or whatever it is that you're basing your composition off of. And essentially it's just like an overall portfolio tracker that you can use. Then over here, this one is what I think is probably the most useful for. It's used to track your evolving writing voice. So looking at every time that you log a piece that you create, and kind of look at if you have any sort of recurring habits or things that you might be kind of developing as you're writing. So for example, if you might find that you use a metaphor and then you find that somewhere else, and then you use that in your writing and see if it's fulfilling the purpose that you're trying for it to fulfill. And then again, put it into the category of the 3 different texts that you might be asked to speak about. And then at the very end, we've also uploaded a couple of resources as well. This one is a really great resource that kind of walks you through English language techniques. So it's got a good list of ones that you can use when you're talking about your writing. And then the same way, we've got one for effects and emotions. So again, looking at what are some, that's still the language technique one. There we go, nope. Okay, well, we can edit that, that's all good. Moving on, this is the inspiration log. I think this one's super helpful because, as you were talking about as well, one of the biggest things when it comes to developing your tone as a writer comes from knowing what you like and don't like in other people's writing. So looking at what gives you inspiration. Is it the style of the writing? Is it the things they're writing about? whatever else. So we've created this to kind of help you to think about texts that you really like, see if there's anything you can borrow or why that inspires you, and ways to adapt that into your own writing for the HSC. We've also got a weekly tracker and then some ready to go sort of writing seed banks. So just some common things that people can talk about within writing. So that's the portfolio tracker there. Did anybody have any questions for us about that one? It is downloadable on our Discord server for free. So we'll leave a link to that one on our TikTok after this live. What do you think about some writing, like just like some ready to go like topics maybe that people can kind of draw from? I don't know, for example, conflicted cultural identity, changing relationships with parents, etc.
Yeah, you can think about things that concern you in your daily life when you think about disconnection in modern society. Is that as a result of increased technology, maybe decreased interaction, the lack of I know that quite a common theme recently are third spaces, so places that are built solely for human connection and interactivity. You may also think there's nostalgia and the loss of childhood sort of memories and the magic of that. And so I know that there's this quite recent term of like nostalgia bait. People preying upon that sensation that we no longer can no longer find that magic or that inspiration here. So I think that's a really important one. A new and developing one are maybe AI pressures or concerns, or if you're thinking about the technological age, how that develops, and it's still a pressing concern. I know that it's been quite an enduring one, but it's got new iterations, and so technology and innovation will always be quite a strong thematic underpinning here. You can also think about your own experiences. Are there family values? Are there social pressures and conditions? Is it the human experience? Is it the human condition? Is it more philosophical? So like existential? Is there dread? Think about those kind of things. So anything that's really quite pressing and impending that you feel will likely be quite a common condition and quite associative. Many people will be able to relate.
Awesome. Just again, for anyone who's joined our TikTok live or our Discord live or our YouTube live, because we're on many platforms.
3 different forums.
If you have any questions for Alice in terms of Module C for the HSC, anything to do with creative writing, English, anything like that, let us know. She is currently doing creative writing at university, so has a large bank of wonderful knowledge to give us. So again, ask away. In the meantime, what we might do is, let's have a look at...
Was there a question on YouTube?
No. Yeah, YouTube is grim. Okay.
What do we think? So if we're thinking about the sort of various technical writing components that we may employ in our own writing, you may be thinking about things like imagery and similes and metaphors that you may consider will always be overdone, always be trite, and you think everything's beaten to death. So some of the ways that I try and create sort of new and exciting images are by creating them very viscerally. So thinking about my own body, thinking about what I feel in certain environments, certain situations, certain moments, and trying to sort of almost reenact that or reanimate that in writing. So as you're experiencing things, as you're working through your own emotions and sort of the physical splendors of life, please do think about how you may be able to translate that into writing. Think about exactly what you're feeling. Think about how you could conjure that up really viscerally. You can think about really raw, gutsy stuff. You can write with violence. You can write with those kind of things. And in many ways, that's all the more impactful if you really actually, there's this quotation from a famous writer that says, go for the jugular, so go for the throat, be cutthroat when you're writing. And so that's one way that I look to create really strong images. I look at viscerality, I think about my own body. And then if you're thinking about similes, metaphors, I think that one key practice that many writers have is keeping a sort of everyday journal, or like an everyday maybe handbook that's just on hand. So as you're going around and you're looking at other people interact, I know that lots of people were talking about in the comments, your key themes, maybe human consciousness or human experience. So as you're going around, actually look at the way humans experience things. You're walking around, you're seeing other people, think about the way that you're impacting them, the way that they're impacting you, how they interrelate, how they interact. Those kind of things are sort of invaluable writing material. So have an everyday book that you can use, you can take around with you. And then again, really visceral images come from your own experience, come from your own body. So those kind of things really, I really focus on those in my own writing. So
Yeah. And I was thinking that I think a lot of kids are very scared, or the idea of discursive writing can be quite daunting.
Yes.
What would you say are probably your tips on planning a discursive piece, or looking at how do you make it not sound like an essay, because that's not what they're looking for, but at the same time, just kind of, again, building your own voice as a writer, but still meeting the criteria of a discursive. I think a lot of people can miss the ball on that.
Yeah, well, as you know, you're really trying to unpack the underlying or the underpinning themes, and so the thematic underlinings, and then of course your purpose and impact and audience. So I think that when you're writing discursively, there are more avenues for doing that than you may initially expect. I know that some people love to start with either a quotation, an anecdote, or maybe a personal reflection, just one statement that you then use as your guiding point. So I think that one important thing in writing, in any writing, is that you have a guide. Some people can get lost into, the world of themes, the world of language. And I think that if you have a common thread throughout your writing, that's something that can really strongly improve your discursive writing itself. If you're thinking about a text in particular, if you're thinking about multiple texts, there is always the opportunity for just really more strict unpacking of the text itself. You can focus on a theme or a motif, and then really go into detail, into depth about the way that you experience that, the intended audience, the effect, the emotional impact. There's an emotional register to all the writing that you're looking at. So thinking about that tone, thinking about that voice, that's a really important thing to take into your discursive writing. You may also think about personal anecdotes. You can include anecdotes, you can include reflections in your discursive writing. So don't be shy. You can do those kind of things. But I think that you have, and make sure you don't fall into the trap of doing persuasive writing. I know that that's something that you can fall into quite easily. You aren't trying to push a certain point. You aren't trying to persuade and try and nudge shoulders with the examiner. You are trying to unpack a theme. So yes, just remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're almost going to wrap up, everyone. So if you are on our live, if you have any other questions for Alice in terms of anything to do with writing, creative writing, English, Module C for the HSC, anything to do with high school and the HSC life,
Yes.
anything at all, drop it down below. What we might do, I think that one question that I would find really helpful if I was in their position as a student, especially given that a lot of people like to go in with a pre-prepared at least plan or something that they've got in mind. What do you do if the stimulus doesn't suit the idea that you've prepared?
Well, I know that this happens quite often, and I think even though it's difficult not to get quite devoted to one piece, I reckon part of the battle is actually just understanding that it isn't always in your hands, that you cannot control the process with an exacting grip. So if you're going in there thinking it's either this or nothing, that isn't going to be conducive to a good mindset in the actual exam itself. So rather than being tethered to one idea or like just one chunk of writing that you need to blurt out onto the page in the exam conditions, please think about more the themes and the overarching impacts and effects and emotional register that you can find in multiple different texts. So maybe 3 or 4, having a good bank of 4 different texts, and then maybe a bank of 4 texts. And I think that it would be best to have ones that are applicable to different conditions, different historical periods, and I guess also different. Is it realism? Is it fact? Is it fictional? Think about subjectivity and perspective. So try and find a good bank of texts that are applicable to a variety of situations and circumstances, and then you'll probably feel more ready. You'll probably feel more engaged with themes and text and world building and the universes that surround that, rather than feel so strictly compelled by one text and one idea and then one strict interpretation. So it is all interpretive.
Mm-hmm.
So as you go in there, try and reframe your thinking. Don't just have something that you need to get down. Be adaptable, be flexible, and have texts that do the same.
Yeah. Awesome. Alrighty, well, we're approaching 6 o'clock, and that comes to an end our English Ask Us Anything session today. We hold sessions like this every single week on our Discord server, and there's free resources, our free portfolio tracker. We're uploading a free resource on achieving a band 6 and lifting your marks specifically within English for the HSC, and just many, many more resources like that are going to just keep on coming. So if you would like to join our Discord, we have links for it all over our TikTok page, so you can join on that. Otherwise, we have links on our Instagram as well. Next week, we're holding a science Ask Us Anything with one of our tutors that is about to become a biology teacher in high school.
Yeah.
And he's very passionate about pathology and things like that. So if you have any questions for him about bio or science in general, you can drop them into our Discord as well. But yeah, aside from that, thank you so much for your time today.
Of course, thank you for your questions as well.
Yeah, but we'll wrap up here. Does anyone else have anything else to add or say?
Tidbits.
Anything else before we finish up? Let us know. We'll hang back for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to jump off this call.
And thank you everyone for stopping by, coming along.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope it was helpful.
Okay.